There's a reason why some of the strongest people you'll ever meet don't talk much about what they're going through. Have you noticed that? The quiet ones, the ones who keep moving, who keep building, who keep showing up, they rarely sit down and tell the world how hard their life really is. And that should make you wonder, why? Why would someone who has every reason to complain choose silence instead? Because here's the truth most people don't want to accept. When you tell everyone your problems, you think you're relieving a burden, but in reality, you're only shifting it. You're giving away your power piece by piece to people who may not even care, people who can't solve it, and worse, people who may secretly use it against you. And once you realize that, once you see how exposing your pain doesn't heal you but weakens you, you'll understand why some of the most resilient people choose to carry their struggles in silence. Think about it. Every time you open your mouth to complain, you're telling the world, I can't handle this. Every time you vent to someone who isn't invested in your growth, you're feeding them a part of yourself that you might never get back. And yet when you keep it to yourself, when you learn to stand tall without making your suffering a spectacle, that's when you discover a power most people never touch. That's when your problems stop defining you and start sharpening you. And today I want to pull back that curtain. I want to show you why keeping your struggles close, why protecting your hardships like they're sacred, is one of the most life-changing decisions you can ever make. Not because you need to be secretive, not because you should be cold, but because your peace, your strength, your growth, all of it depends on what you choose to share and what you choose to guard. What if I told you the very thing you're rushing to talk about, to explain, to seek comfort for, is actually the very thing that's meant to make you unshakable if you just keep it in your hands long enough to grow from it? Wouldn't you want to know why silence in the middle of pain is not weakness but one of the greatest powers you'll ever own? Most of us grow up with the belief that when we're hurting, when life feels heavy, the best thing to do is talk about it. We're told to open up, to share, to let it out. And yes, there are moments in life where talking is necessary, but the harsh reality is this. Not everyone cares about your problems. In fact, most people don't. Not because they're cruel or heartless, but because they're too wrapped up in their own lives, their own struggles, their own silent battles. Every single person you meet is carrying something you don't see, something they probably don't talk about either. And when you put your problems on the table in front of them, you assume they have the space and the energy to care. But in reality, many don't. Think about the last time someone unloaded all of their problems on you. You might have listened, maybe even offered some advice. But deep down, you probably had your own worries pressing against your mind. Maybe you were dealing with financial stress, or a health concern, or a relationship problem. And while you tried to be there for them, your energy was divided. You weren't fully present. You couldn't be, because your life already felt full. That's the exact same thing that happens when you share your problems with others. It doesn't mean they dislike you. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that carrying is heavy. And most people already have enough weight of their own. Now here's the trap. When you expect others to care, when you expect them to hold your pain with you, you set yourself up for disappointment. You get frustrated when someone doesn't respond the way you hoped. You feel neglected when they don't check in on you the way you thought they would. You start to believe that no one understands you, when the truth is, they simply can't prioritize your struggle above their own. And that doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them human. This is why you can't go through life depending on other people to carry your burdens. If you constantly seek someone to unload on, you'll always be chasing an audience that may or may not care. You'll waste energy looking for validation instead of finding solutions. And here's the dangerous part. You may start reshaping your problems, exaggerating them, or dramatizing them just to get the reaction you want from people. That's when your problems stop being something you solve and start becoming something you use to get attention. The moment you go down that road, you lose power over your life. The strongest people in the world don't go around broadcasting every difficulty they face. They've learned something that most people never do. Complaining doesn't change the situation. Talking about it to everyone you meet doesn't make it go away. In fact, sometimes the more you talk about it, the bigger it feels. You keep feeding it by giving it attention. But when you hold it in, when you learn to process it privately, you take away its power. You don't let it define you. You don't let it become the story you tell over and over again. Instead, you focus on moving forward. Imagine you're carrying a backpack filled with rocks. Every problem is another rock. Now imagine you walk into a room and start handing out these rocks to everyone around you. At first, people might take one or two. They might try to carry it for you, but eventually they'll get tired. They'll realize they already have their own backpack to deal with. And while you're handing out rocks, you're not getting lighter. You're just spreading the weight. The truth is, no one is going to carry your backpack for you. At the end of the day, it's yours. And the only way to get lighter is to stop focusing on handing out rocks and start focusing on taking them out yourself. Here's another hard truth. When you constantly tell people your problems, it can actually push them away. People may start associating you with negativity. They may dread conversations with you because they know it's going to be filled with complaints and sorrow. That's not because they're bad friends or unkind. It's because energy is contagious. And if you always bring heavy energy, people will naturally distance themselves. On the other hand, when you carry yourself with strength, even in the face of difficulty, people are drawn to you. They respect you. They see you as someone who can be counted on, not someone who always needs to be rescued. And here's the most important part. The people who truly care, the people who love you deeply, don't need you to constantly explain your problems to them. They can see it in your eyes. They can feel it in your presence, and they'll show up for you without needing every detail. Those are the people worth keeping close. The ones who don't require you to constantly unload, the ones who can simply stand by your side in silence. And you'll never discover who those people are if you're busy broadcasting your struggles to everyone. So stop assuming the world cares about your problems. It doesn't. And that's not a reason to feel bitter. It's a reason to feel empowered. Because the moment you stop expecting others to carry your weight, you realize just how much strength you actually have. You start building resilience. You stop wasting time explaining yourself and start investing time fixing yourself. And slowly you become the person others look at and wonder, how do they do it? How do they keep moving even when life gets hard? The answer is simple. You stop telling everyone your problems and you start proving to yourself that you can handle them. That's the difference between staying stuck and growing stronger. That's the difference between needing sympathy and earning respect. When you open up about your struggles, when you lay your pain bare in front of others, you believe you're creating connection. You believe you're inviting someone into your world who will understand, who will support you, who will protect what you've shared. But what we often forget is that every word we speak, every detail we reveal, becomes a piece of us that is no longer under our control. And once it leaves your lips, once your weakness is exposed, you don't get to decide how it will be handled. That's where the danger lies, because not everyone you confide in has your best interest at heart. Your vulnerabilities can be used against you. Think about it. Every time you tell someone about your deepest fears, your insecurities, your mistakes, you are handing them a weapon. Now, some people may never use it. They may lock it away and protect it as if it were their own. But others, whether out of envy, malice, or even simple carelessness, may not guard your truth with the same respect. They might repeat it to someone else. They might judge you silently. Or worse, they may wait until a moment of conflict, a moment when they feel the need to strike, and they'll bring your own words back against you. And suddenly what you thought was safe becomes a blade pressed against your own chest. It happens in workplaces, in friendships, even in families. You confide about your struggles with money, and before long, people start treating you as less capable, as if you can't be trusted with responsibility. You open up about a mistake you made, and months later, someone throws it in your face during an argument. You reveal that you're struggling emotionally, and instead of support, some people quietly label you as weak, unstable, or unreliable. This is the risk you take when you put every wound on display, because once it's out, you can't control how others will see you. Here's the harsh truth. Not everyone deserves access to the most fragile parts of you. Your vulnerability is sacred. It is raw, it is real, and it is powerful, but only when protected. The moment you share it with the wrong person, you give them the ability to shape how the world perceives you. And if they choose to misuse that, they can turn your openness into your downfall. Now, this doesn't mean you should never be vulnerable. Vulnerability has a time, a place, and most importantly, an audience. But the problem is that many people confuse vulnerability with oversharing. They confuse openness with recklessness. They believe that speaking about every wound is healing. But what it really does is hand over your narrative to others who might twist it. The truth is, healing doesn't come from broadcasting your struggles. Healing comes from facing them, from working through them, and from choosing carefully who you let see that side of you. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in the middle of a storm, and your home has a broken window. You can choose to quietly fix it, patch it up, and reinforce it so that the storm doesn't destroy everything inside. Or you can stand outside and announce to the world, my window is broken. Maybe someone will come to help, but more likely you've just told everyone where you're weak. And someone with ill intentions might see that as an opportunity to break in. That's the danger of exposing your vulnerabilities. You think you're seeking help, but in some cases you're opening yourself up to harm. Another danger is that people can start to define you. by your problems. The moment you reveal your struggles, they may not see you for your strength, your discipline, your potential. Instead, they begin to associate you with your wounds. You become the person who went through this, or the one who struggles with that. And whether they say it out loud or not, they start placing you in a box you may never be able to break out of in their eyes. But when you learn to keep certain battles to yourself, when you refuse to hand people the scripts of your weaknesses, you maintain control. You decide how you are seen. You choose whether the world views you through the lens of your problems or through the lens of your resilience. And that choice is powerful, because the less you reveal, the less ammunition anyone has against you. We live in a time where oversharing is common. Social media has turned people's pain into public content. Everyone wants to talk about what they're going through, what they're suffering with, what they're battling against. And while that might feel liberating in the moment, it also leaves you exposed to criticism, judgment, and exploitation from strangers who don't care about you. That kind of exposure is dangerous, and it's why the strongest people in the room are often the quietest. They're not hiding because they're weak. They're protecting their strength by refusing to let the world weaponize their vulnerability. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop seeing silence as isolation and start seeing it as protection. When you keep your vulnerabilities guarded, you are not bottling up pain. You are shielding your growth. You are refusing to let others define you by your lowest moments. You are keeping your power in your own hands. That doesn't mean you can't seek help when it's absolutely necessary. It doesn't mean you can't open up to the rare people who have truly earned your trust. But it does mean that not everyone deserves a seat at the table of your pain. Not everyone has the right to know what battles you're fighting. And most importantly, not everyone should have the power to turn your struggles into their advantage. So the next time you feel tempted to tell the world what you're going through, pause and ask yourself, is this person worthy of my truth? Have they proven they can protect what I'm about to hand them? Or am I simply giving them a weapon I might regret later? If the answer is unclear, silence is the smarter choice. Because your vulnerability is valuable. It's the most delicate currency you have. And if you don't guard it wisely, someone else will spend it for you, and you'll be left paying the price. That is why strength is not always in the sharing. Sometimes, strength is in the restraint. Strength is in knowing that what you're fighting is shaping you, and you don't need to give anyone the opportunity to turn that fight against you. Protect your vulnerability, and you protect your future. Strength is often misunderstood. People imagine it as loud, as something that announces itself, as something that demands recognition. But the truth is, real strength doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't even need to be acknowledged. Real strength shows itself in how quietly you overcome. The people who move through life with quiet resilience, who face challenges without turning them into a performance, are the ones who truly embody power. They don't need to shout about their battles, because their growth speaks louder than any story ever could. Think about this for a moment. When you see someone who has been through hardship, but you didn't even know until much later, doesn't it strike you differently? Doesn't it make you respect them more? You look at them and realize they were carrying storms inside, yet they never made it anyone else's responsibility. They never begged for sympathy. They never sought attention. They just kept going. And that quiet perseverance leaves a deeper impression than any public display of suffering ever could. Here's why this matters. When you face difficulties in silence, you're forced to develop an inner muscle that most people never touch. You don't rely on external validation to get you through. You don't depend on someone else's encouragement to push forward. You create your own momentum. And in that process, you cultivate a strength that can't be taken away from you because it doesn't belong to anyone else. It belongs to you alone. Now, that doesn't mean you never struggle. It doesn't mean you never feel the weight of what you're carrying. Quiet strength isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to let the weight of your problems define your identity. You might cry behind closed doors. You might wrestle with doubts in the privacy of your own mind. But when you step back out into the world, you do it with dignity. You show up with your head high, not because the pain disappeared, but because you refuse to let it own you. There's a kind of discipline that comes with silence and hardship. When you don't speak constantly about your struggles, you save that energy for action. You channel it into building, into solving, into progressing. And while others are busy talking about what they're going through, you're busy moving forward. That's why people who quietly overcome often seem years ahead of everyone else. They don't waste time turning their battles into conversations. They turn their battles into growth. Think about some of the most admired figures throughout history. They didn't earn respect by broadcasting every obstacle they faced. They earned it by showing results, by emerging from trials stronger than before. Their silence during the storm made their comeback louder than any words could have. That is the essence of true strength. It's not the story of how hard things were. It's the reality of how you kept moving anyway. There's also freedom in quiet strength. When you stop announcing every struggle, you stop giving others the power to measure your progress. No one can track how low you were, so no one can diminish how far you've climbed. You create a private space where your battles belong only to you, and your victories are revealed only when you decide they're ready to be seen. That privacy is liberating because it allows you to grow without judgment, without comparison, without interference. And here's something else. People respect strength in silence far more than they respect constant complaints. When you keep overcoming quietly, others start to notice, not because you told them, but because your actions reveal it. They see the discipline in how you carry yourself. They notice the consistency in your work. They watch you stand tall when you had every reason to fall. And that unspoken resilience commands respect in a way that words never can. But this path isn't easy. Quiet strength requires patience. It requires humility. It requires the ability to sit with your own discomfort without rushing to unload it on others. Most people can't do that. They feel the need to broadcast every setback because they crave attention. They crave validation. They crave someone telling them it's going to be okay. But when you learn to be your own source of reassurance, when you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I've got this, even when no one else knows what you're carrying, that's when you discover real freedom. Imagine a seed planted deep in the soil. It doesn't shout about the darkness it's in. It doesn't complain about the weight pressing down on it. It doesn't seek sympathy from the world above. It simply grows. Quietly. Patiently. Persistently. And then one day it breaks through the surface. Not because it told anyone it was struggling, but because it kept pushing through, inch by inch. That's the same way strength works. The world doesn't need to see the struggle beneath the surface. The world will see the growth when it's time. There's a line you'll come to understand the more you live. Strength doesn't boast, weakness does. Weakness constantly needs to prove itself, to announce itself, to be seen and validated. Strength doesn't. Strength doesn't care who's watching. It doesn't care who knows. It just exists. Unshakable, quiet, undeniable. And the ones who master this truth are the ones who carry an aura that can't be faked. So when life feels heavy, when the weight is almost unbearable, resist the urge to make it a performance. Resist the temptation to prove how much you're enduring. Instead, let your silence be your statement. Let your persistence be your proof. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that the greatest victories weren't in the moments you told the world what you were going through. They were in the moments you said nothing and just kept walking forward. Because in the end, strength isn't about how loudly you struggle. It's about how quietly you overcome. And when you learn to do that, you'll discover a kind of power no one can take from you. When something goes wrong in life, our first instinct is to talk about it. We tell our friends, our coworkers, sometimes even strangers, about the situation. We vent, we complain, we repeat the story again and again. And in those moments, it feels like we're doing something about it. Talking gives us a release, a temporary relief, as if by voicing the problem we've taken a step forward. But the truth is, nothing has changed. The problem is still sitting there, waiting for it. And here's the trap most people never realize. Every second you spend complaining is a second you're not solving. Every ounce of energy you pour into telling the story of your struggle is energy you've stolen from the solution. Think about it. When you complain, what are you really doing? You're describing the problem in detail. You're magnifying it, giving it more space in your mind. You're rehearsing it, repeating it, strengthening its grip on you. And the more you talk about it, the bigger it feels. You're feeding it. But when you stop talking about it and start asking, what can I do right now to change this? The energy shifts completely. You move from victim to problem solver. You stop being someone who suffers and start being someone who acts. That difference between complaining and taking action determines whether your life stays stuck or moves forward. Complaining has another hidden cost. It conditions your mind to look for sympathy instead of solutions. You begin to crave the comfort of someone nodding, someone agreeing, someone saying, I know, that's tough. And while that might soothe you for a moment, it doesn't fix anything. In fact, it can trap you. Because once you're hooked on sympathy, You start repeating your problems just to feel that validation. But no amount of validation will remove the struggle, only solutions will. And if you're honest with yourself, you know that no one else can solve your problems for you. They can give advice, they can offer support, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has to take the steps. Think of your energy as a currency. Every time you complain, you're spending it on something that gives you nothing in return. It's like pouring water into a cup with a hole at the bottom. It feels like you're filling it, but it's draining out just as fast. Now imagine taking that same energy and directing it toward action, toward research, planning, discipline, persistence. That's how you start to actually change your circumstances. That's how you build momentum, and momentum is worth far more than sympathy. Here's a truth most people don't like to hear. Life does not reward complaints. Life rewards effort. It rewards discipline. It rewards the person who gets up after being knocked down, not the one who sits on the ground talking about how unfair it is. Life is indifferent to your complaints, but it responds to your actions. The more time you waste telling the story of why you can't, the less time you spend proving that you can, and that choice is always in your hands. Think about the people you admire. Do you admire them because they complained the loudest? Or do you admire them because they overcame? No one remembers the ones who spent their days blaming, whining, venting. We remember the ones who turned obstacles into stepping stones, who faced the same pain and setbacks, but responded with solutions instead of complaints. That's what sets leaders apart from followers. Leaders find a way forward. Complainers stay stuck where they are. Now let's be clear. Acknowledging a problem is necessary. You can't fix what you refuse to admit. But there's a fine line between acknowledging and obsessing. Acknowledging says, this is the challenge. Now what's the next step? Complaining says, this is the challenge, and let me tell you over and over how bad it is. One path leads to movement. The other leads to stagnation. And most people don't even realize which path they're on, because complaining feels active. It feels like you're doing something, but it's an illusion. It tricks you into believing you're progressing, when in reality, you're wasting time. Let me give you an image. Imagine you're standing at the base of a mountain. Your goal is to reach the top. Complaining is like standing there, pointing at the mountain, and saying, it's so tall, it's so steep, it's not fair that it's this hard. You can stand there for hours, days, even years, repeating those words. And guess what? The mountain doesn't shrink. It doesn't bend to your complaints. It stays exactly the same. But the moment you take one step upward, even if it's small, you've done something complaints could never do. You've begun the climb. That step, however difficult, takes you closer to the top. Talking about the mountain doesn't move you an inch. Climbing does. And here's the secret solutions. Don't always have to be huge. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You don't need the entire plan figured out. All you need is to redirect your energy from words to actions. One small change, one step, one adjustment in your routine can create a ripple effect. But you'll never see that ripple if your energy is wasted on repeating the problem instead of attempting the solution. Another thing about solutions, they give you confidence. When you act, even if you fail, you learn, you gain experience, you sharpen your skills, you build resilience. Complaints give you nothing but more frustration. Action, on the other hand, teaches you something every time. And with each lesson, you grow stronger. That's why people who choose solutions over complaints always seem more grounded, more confident, more capable. They've trained themselves to face the problem head on instead of drowning in it. So the next time you catch yourself complaining, stop and ask, what am I really doing right now? Am I feeding the problem or solving it? Am I looking for sympathy or am I building strength? That moment of awareness can change everything. Because once you see complaining for what it really is, a thief of time, a thief of energy, a thief of progress, you won't want to waste another second on it. You'll start to shift your focus towards solutions, toward forward movement, toward progress. And when you make that shift, something incredible happens. Problems stop feeling like chains and start feeling like challenges. They become opportunities to grow, to adapt, to innovate. You stop being the person who tells stories of struggle and start being the person who inspires others with stories of resilience. That's the power of choosing solutions over complaints. That's the choice that separates those who stay stuck from those who rise. Keys to something everyone says they want, but very few people ever truly experience it. And one of the main reasons why is because they give it away without even realizing it. They talk too much. They share too much. They broadcast their struggles, their frustrations, their failures, their private thoughts, and in doing so, they let the outside world hold the keys to their inner calm. What most people don't understand is that your peace depends directly on what you choose to share and what you choose to protect. Every word you speak, every detail you reveal, is either preserving your peace or putting it at risk. When you share everything, you open the door for everyone's opinions, judgments, and energy to enter your life. And not all of it is good. Some people will encourage you, yes, but others will criticize, gossip, or secretly root against you. And suddenly, what was once your private battle now feels like a public performance. You're no longer focused on solving the problem. You're worried about what people think about how you're solving it. That shift alone is enough to rob you of peace. Think about a time when you told someone about a problem, and instead of feeling lighter, you walked away feeling heavier. Maybe they judged you. Maybe they gave you advice you didn't want. Maybe they dismissed your feelings. Or maybe they said nothing at all, and their silence left you wondering what they really thought. In every case, your peace was disturbed not because of the problem itself, but because of what happened after you shared it. The truth is, the moment you put your struggles in someone else's hands, you lose control of how they'll be handled. And when you lose control, you lose peace. When you keep things to yourself, when you learn to sit with your own struggles quietly, something shifts. You create a safe space inside where your thoughts are yours alone, untouched by the noise of the outside world. You don't have to manage other people's opinion. You don't have to worry about gossip or judgment. You don't have to defend your choices. You simply focus on what matters, finding clarity, taking action, and protecting your inner balance. That's where peace lives. Privacy is not about secrecy. It's about protection, protecting your energy, protecting your focus, protecting your heart. Because the less you give the world to talk about, the less power it has to disrupt your calm. When you stop feeding everyone details about your life, you stop giving them opportunities to interfere. You stop giving them ammunition to use against you. And most importantly, you stop attaching your peace to other people's responses. Another thing to understand is that the more you share, the more expectations you create. If you tell people about your struggles, you may start expecting them to check in on you, to ask how you're doing, to offer support. And when they don't, you feel let down, you feel unseen, you feel alone. But were you truly let down, or did you create expectations that never needed to exist in the first place? Sharing often builds invisible contracts in your mind. I told them so, now they should care. And when those contracts aren't fulfilled, you lose peace. By keeping things to yourself, you eliminate that risk. You free yourself from depending on anyone else's reaction to feel okay. Peace is also tied to simplicity. The more complicated your life becomes with other people's opinions, the more restless your mind becomes. Sharing everything complicates things. It invites layers of misunderstanding, criticism, and unnecessary commentary. But choosing silence, choosing discretion, keeps life simpler. Simplicity creates space for calm. And calm is the soil in which peace grows. Now let's look at the flip side. When you do share wisely, when you choose carefully who you open up to, when you reveal only what's necessary, you actually strengthen your peace. Because peace isn't about shutting everyone out. It's about letting in only the right people, the rare few who don't judge, who don't gossip, who don't add to your stress, but instead hold space for you quietly. These are the people who protect your peace rather than disrupt it. And the only way you can identify them is by first guarding your vulnerability and sharing only when it feels truly safe. There's also something incredibly powerful about not being predictable. When people don't know everything about you, they can't control you. They can't anticipate your moves. They can't shake your confidence with their words. You move in silence, and that silence keeps you strong. It keeps your peace intact, because you're not constantly defending yourself against chatter or opinions. You're too busy building, too busy growing, too busy focusing on the next step. That kind of quiet progress is one of the most peaceful ways to live. And here's the deeper truth. Peace doesn't come from the absence of problems. It comes from the presence of control. Control over your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. And part of that control is deciding what to share and what to hold back. The moment you realize you don't have to announce every struggle, every detail of your life, every setback, you take back control. You stop scattering pieces of yourself across conversations that don't serve you. You gather your energy inward and you create a fortress of peace within yourself. So ask yourself how much of your restlessness comes from what you've given away. How much of your anxiety is tied to someone else knowing too much about your life. How much of your frustration comes not from the problem itself, but from the way people responded when you told them about it. If you're honest, you'll see that most of your peace isn't stolen by problems. It's stolen by oversharing. The solution isn't to shut down, to isolate, or to harden your heart. The solution is to become intentional. Share less. Protect more. Guard your inner world like it's sacred, because it is. The fewer people who have access to your vulnerabilities, the fewer opportunities there are for your peace to be disturbed. And the more you hold on to your privacy, the lighter, calmer, and freer you'll feel. In the end, peace doesn't come from the outside. It's not something people can give you or take away from you unless you let them. Peace is a choice you make every day by deciding what to let in and what to keep out. And one of the most powerful choices you'll ever make is this: to stop telling the world everything and to start protecting the silence that keeps your soul steady. At the end of the day, life is going to test you. It's going to throw weight on your shoulders, storms in your path, and challenges you never saw coming. And in those moments, you will have a choice. You can run to the world, telling everyone how hard it is, hoping someone else will carry the weight for you. Or you can stand tall, carry your own burden, and let the struggle shape you into someone unshakable. Not everyone cares about your problems. Your vulnerabilities can be used against you. True strength is shown in how quietly you overcome. Complaining will never change your life, but solutions will. And your peace, your precious irreplaceable peace, depends on what you choose to share and what you choose to protect. These are not just lessons, they are survival skills for a world that often watches but rarely helps. Understand this: your silence is not weakness. Your privacy is not emptiness. Your restraint is not coldness. They are your armor. They are your shield. They are the very tools that will keep you steady when life tries to break you. Because strength is not built by telling the world how hard things are. Strength is built by rising again and again with no need for applause, no need for sympathy, no need for validation. One day people will look at you and wonder how you did it. They'll wonder how you stayed strong, how you kept moving, how you came out on the other side. And you won't need to explain. Your life, your growth, your results will say everything for you. So protect your energy, guard your peace. Stop wasting time handing out your struggles like souvenirs. Keep your power in your own hands and let your life become the proof of your resilience. Because the most powerful statement you will ever make is not in what you tell the world, it's in what you survive without telling them.